Fix bayonets. It's probably the first thing you want to hear when you're watching a really cool battle scene in a movie, and it's probably the last thing you want to hear if you're serving as an infantry unit in a conflict zone. As long as firearms have been around, so has the edge of the bayonet that complements it. But however, one doesn't have to be a military expert to observe that within the past 80-ish years, the bayonet as an essential part of kit has slowly been fizzled out in favor of more advanced technologies, considering the vast distances wars are often fought now. Yet there are exceptions to that, and the bayonet still remains. Why? Let's talk about it. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Robert Arms. My name is Rob, and I'm the host of this channel. If you're not already subscribed, you should probably do so now, and check out my Instagram at Robert Arms Official for any updates regarding this channel. Anyway, what's the point? The bayonet, as long as it's been around, has been a symbol of combat prowess and psychological intimidation. Yet, it still somehow remains a subject of constant debate between circles of the military and civilians alike as to whether or not the bayonet serves a modern purpose in today's world. Regardless if you're civilian or military, that is a pretty valid question. Sure, your gun looks really cool with that scary looking bayonet on the end of it, but at the same time, with modern technology like self-loading rifles, detachable magazines, fire supremacy doctrine, along with suppressive fire from select fire weapons that the military uses, what's the point of having the bayonet on the end of the gun when the assailant could never really get that close? Well, I think the best way to approach this situation and understand it clearly as to why the bayonet is still around is by looking at how they were used historically. The role of the bayonet historically has changed over time, being that technology and tactics played a very heavy role in this. When firearms were first introduced on a mass scale in combat for the first time around the end of the medieval era in Europe, all the way up until the colonial era, soldiers were typically carrying some kind of matchlock, wheellock, or flintlock smoothbore musket. With barrel and bullet ballistic technology being as limited as it was regardless of the type of musket they were using, soldiers often marched in large groups up close on the battlefield, firing very inaccurate volleys at each other. Once the volleys were thrown, there was a considerable period of time where reloading has to take place, mostly because of the fact that they only have the ability to fire in single shots. This, for example, could open the opportunity for a large group of soldiers to get up close and personal with their enemy. Now, in case this happened, in the early days of musketry, these guys were defended by groups of people called pikemen, which were basically melee guards with giant spears. This would soon come to an end when somebody had the bright idea somewhere in Europe that if you shove a knife down the end of your muzzle on your musket, you effectively turn your musket into a spear, so you can defend yourself without having to rely on a pikeman. So these were considered the first bayonets, and they were called plug bayonets. And if you've ever read a history book, you could probably tell that they weren't used for very long because they would often pop out of the end of the muzzle whenever you actually had to use it, and also you couldn't shoot your gun or else you would effectively turn your musket into a bomb. These problems would eventually lead to the invention of the socket bayonet, which was a bayonet with a slot cut in it that had the ability to index it off the front iron sight post on the muzzle, allowing the soldier to shoot and use their blade at the same time. This new dynamic allowed soldiers to have a versatility on the battlefield like never before, and employ the use of tactics like the bayonet charge. These kind of tactics were documented by professional armies like the British, for example, and were often used to attack soldiers for not just a tactical advantage but a psychological one as well, often causing their enemies to flee for their lives during a very vital moment in the battle. Another point, literally, is that bayonets offer the soldier a deadly weapon with reach to keep the enemy at bay during defensive posturing, whether that be fending off some kind of a cavalry assault, dispersing a riot, or simply keeping control of a prisoner if shooting alone isn't an option. There was a shorter period of time from the Civil War era up into the turn of the century that led to designs like the sword bayonet, which were a result of an effort to combine the reach of a long blade with a hilt, allowing use as an independent weapon, with different styles and designs used by many different nations. Though these were extremely long and kind of cumbersome to use as a practical bayonet, the theme of multi-use would stay with later designs. As they say in Fallout, war...
Shut the fuck up.
When World War I came about and battles were ground into stalemates, soldiers dug in, technology evolved to rapid-fire weapons like the bolt-action rifle and the automatic belt-fed machine gun, and trench warfare ensued, leading to many engagements taking place at close quarters. Melee weapons offered a key role in helping the soldier fight their enemy in these conditions, leading to the evolution of the bayonet yet again. Bayonet design took more of a sleek approach, still keeping that old idea of reach, maintaining the long length. The problems with the length started to weigh throughout the war, though. It was noted that very rarely were they actually ever used to harm the enemy in battle, with few casualties actually being reported by use of the bayonet itself compared to other weapons like aircraft, artillery, and gas, leading to its relevance being questioned even early in that point in history. This led to bayonets by World War II to be shortened down to the length of a modern knife-style bayonet that you often see most weapon kits utilize today. And I have plenty of examples of them behind me, as you can see. By World War II, most bayonets were shortened down to this kind of length as a fighting knife rather than the longer versions that they used to have in World War I. This made them more practical, of ease of use, and be able to carry them around on the battlefield, either on your person or mounted to your rifle, a lot easier. Many countries explore the idea of having built-in bayonets, like on this SKS design, where the soldier doesn't have to simply deploy their bayonet off of their belt to their weapon when they can simply deploy one from the weapon itself. When countries started to adopt magazine-fed battle rifles in the 1950s, they explored different concepts of bayonet mount designs like this one on the FAL, where it's more of like a socket bayonet attached onto the muzzle device itself. And of course, the superpowers like the United States and Soviet Russia opted to keep bayonet lugs machined on their gas blocks and front iron sight posts to maintain that standard of bayonet use even into the present day. So those were just some examples of World War II and post-World War II fighting knife style bayonets that are still kind of deployed around the world on weapon platforms that are still in use today. So that kind of begs the question, as a civilian, what's the point of having bayonets on your gun when you're really only ever going to use it for maybe a home invasion scenario or, things of that nature? I look at it this way. I think there's really nothing wrong with having a bayonet. It's just not the most useful thing to have for your gun all the time. Obviously, they look cool. Okay, they're scary looking. They intimidate the hell out of the person that you may be facing with that firearm. But at the end of the day, how practical is it to have it on all the time? I would say it's definitely not, for the most part. Now, obviously, I was never a military member, but I would say that in combat use, I have seen some examples, even in the Russia Ukrainian war, of guys mounting bayonets on their weapons when they're pushing into trenches or having to clear out areas of buildings and such, or even as late as the Iraq War, where Marines had them on the end of their M16s on their Fallujah muskets. So I see it this way. It's better to have one and never need it than need one and never have it. Nothing wrong with having a knife around, and it'd be even cooler if that knife can mount on the end of your gun that you have. There's really not a problematic thing to have by any means, but it's also not the most useful thing to have all the time, especially in the modern day. So I feel like you could definitely leave that up to interpretation. That's completely up to your discretion as a gun owner, in my opinion. So anyway, I wanted to explore this topic and maybe talk about it and place an opinion of my own. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment if you agree or disagree, or if I left anything out that was interesting or not. So anyway, check out my Instagram profile at Robert Arms Official to check on any updates regarding this channel. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, stay safe, and I hope to see y'all in the next video.